right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fast 40, or for today, the Fast 38 NASCAR DFS breakdown. We're looking at the Auto Club Wise Power 400. A race with a lot of potential chalk and a lot of interesting side factors, but I've got the GOATs of NASCAR with me, and we're going to break it all down. We got Miller, we got Taco. Let's get into it. All right, here we go. We are back, and we've got the DFS Army NASCAR Research Station open in the background. And let's just talk about the overall. Give me some generalities about this race and this track, because we've been talking right before the show. Carnage is always a key factor in NASCAR in general. Can we trust the chalk? Are these guys going to crash? And you guys are telling me that there has been carnage in the practices and carnage in the qualifying and carnage in Xfinity. What the hell's going on here, Taco?
So the name of the game here is mini carnage. Lots of mini carnage. I mean, we saw it in qualifying, in practice yesterday, people spinning out constantly. Single car wreck. In Xfinity, the same sort of deal, just constant overtimes, constant yellow flag, caution laps.
Why?
Granted, we haven't been here since 2020. Couldn't go here last year because of COVID. One thing we've seen here in the last few times that we've been here, not very many cars in the lead lap. Because despite the carnage, the mini carnage, as I'll put it, I think this track rates #1 in percentage of laps completed. Like, there are a lot of wrecks, but it's mostly single car wrecks. A lot of debris cautions, actually.
So those things seem to be just random, though, like debris cautions. What the hell's that got to do? You know, that can happen anytime. So is that just noise? Is that just statistical noise? Or is there something to do with this vehicle, this new vehicle that they're driving this season? Maybe this being the first of the races where that kind of is a thing. Is that part of this?
I mean, definitely be a big part of this new car, people figuring things out, because God knows practice was a disaster. Think about this track, it's huge. There's so much room to operate. You look back year after year, all the wrecks are 1, 2 cars, maybe 3 cars at the most. There isn't like a big one. There's so many areas for you to go and ways to get out.
I'm looking at the research station and my favorite tab, which is the DK average by start tab. We always talk about this tab, right? Where are the points coming from? Where are the fantasy points coming from for these drivers? So what you know, the basic overall, I'm seeing starting 1 to 5, scoring the best. And then from what I'm looking at here, I mean, what the research
everything else about even.
Everything else about even. So what does this tell you strategically about this race, Taco and Brady? I'd like to get both of your opinions on this one.
Go ahead, Taco.
Big car or big track means the fast cars do well. The cars at the front, like qualifying usually leads to, it's pretty predictive for like actual race speed here in the past, it'd seem.
So let me understand it. When you say big track, this is a 2 mile?
Mm-hmm. It's like super wide. You can go 5 wide here, no problem.
So it's all about vehicle horsepower here. Is that what you're telling me? Because it's not. We're not dealing with a plate racing track. Is this the fastest that the cars are ever going to go? If it's is this track essentially going to let the top speeds be the highest we're ever going to see all season?
No way, because it's not steep enough.
Okay,
it's a flat track. I mean, and you're going to have to work. The longer the runs go, the more you're going to have to work the wall on the outside, which favors some drivers. Other drivers, not so much.
Isn't that a Larson special?
It's like, yeah, Larson's been pretty good here in the past.
Daniel's asking if we should set up a top 5. No, he's asking about. I would not make this rule. At most 1 or
it's a bit reactive.
Yeah,
we could have some of those guys going to the rear too. We've got a lot of guys going to the rear because Kyle Busch could still go to the rear of the field starting 3rd, and that would shake things up a lot. Kind of waiting on that.
A massive shakeup there, and there's a whole bunch of drivers that went to the rear. But from what I understood, and we'll go over those as we break down the drivers. But from what I understand, most of those guys are kind of starting further back anyway, so it didn't really affect too much. There is something going on with Kurt Busch. Brady, what's the story with Kurt Busch? Well, he's losing a lap right off the bat. What's the deal?
I don't think. Is it Kurt Busch that's losing a lap? Am I misremembering?
Kurt Busch is doing a pass-through penalty. He failed
Yeah,
inspection.
that's right. Yeah, so he failed inspection a couple times. He didn't get to make a qualifying attempt and has to do a pass through. Probably won't matter much. He probably won't lose a lap on that pass through. And there's a competition caution at lap 20. So even if he does lose a lap, he'll get it back, assuming there isn't abrupt chaos. So no reason to be too worried about Kurt Busch.
I love that. Good, because Kurt Busch is the supreme chalk of the century here. Brady, I want to throw one more question to you on this carnage situation. So new cars, right? Different drivers aren't necessarily used to them, but we're at a track that normally doesn't necessarily lead to lots of carnage. But a lot of this prediction might just be because of, hey, it happened in Xfinity a ton, and there was a lot of weirdness in practice. Would you say driver skill is going to take a front seat in a race like this, especially on that side? Like, is Kyle Busch, spinning out his vehicle because he doesn't know how to drive this new car? I don't know, so I'm really throwing this out. Like, should we throw extra respect to guys who are just like really good at driving?
Yeah, absolutely. I think based on what we saw in practice and qualifying, like guys were hot lapping and not being able to keep the car under them. When they're racing, they're going to be in situations they haven't been in this car quite yet. So I do think there will be a lot of single car incidents. I think there'll be a little bit of carnage as well. And when you get into these kind of chaotic situations where it's hard to kind of predict based on past results, as a brand new car, drivers are going to be in brand new situations. You kind of have to go back to these kind of universal truths that you learn about drivers over the course of time. Like we know what Kyle Busch can do in a car. We kind of know what the style of racing that Eric Jones has versus Christopher Bell. So as you kind of go through the list of drivers, you kind of, what do I know to be true about this driver, and how does that affect how this race might play out? Because I do tend to think it'll be tough going. I think maybe in the second stage or early in the third stage, we might get a long green flag run. But I think these drivers are just going to be in situations that they haven't been in before in a car that is clearly much more difficult to drive than the last generation. And I think it'll lead to incidents.
All right. So on that note, there are some supreme chalk plays on. Oh, yeah. KB to the rear. There you go. Joey, Brad, and KB potentially to the rear. I somewhat trust Kenny to be correct on this. So, yeah.
There's a bunch to the rear: Harvick, Chastain, Keselowski, Logano, Wallace, Haley, and Kyle Busch, I believe.
Yeah, Kyle Busch is the only one of that group that really we were maybe even looking at as a dominator. So, all right. So now you've got Denny Hamlin now likely to kind of take an early lead. Kyle Larson still looking good, maybe even a little better than Kyle Busch. What do you think in that regard from moving Kyle back? I mean, primarily the only difference I'm thinking of is he's just not likely to lead early. I thought originally he might just quickly take a lead.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like. I think Eric Jones could get a lead early here. I think Austin Cindric could keep the lead early. I don't think these guys are going to want to race too much at the start. They're going to want it single filed out, feel what it's like to move around, feel like I think they're going to take it easy, not race that hard, because they got to figure this car out. And so I think like if Austin Cindric gets the lead, and even if Denny Hamlin's a tenth and a half quicker, I don't think he's going to push the issue. I think let's ride, let's figure out what it feels like to run in second. These are the kind of things that we just don't know. Like there's so many unknowns in this race. So I think to your point, Hamlin's probably the most likely early dominator, but there's no reason why Cindric doesn't get out in front and everybody just kind of rides and figures out what's going on.
Yeah, it could get a little weird early with who dominates. Cindric not being necessarily somebody we think of as having the most elite of vehicles.
Cindric definitely has. It's more he's in a Penske car, so he definitely has elite equipment, and we know how good Penske is or was in the last generation on these big tracks. They bring a lot of power, and they've dominated everything so far this year. It's just a experience thing for Cindric, but that's kind of out the window this week. So Cindric's is as viable as anyone. I think it's just Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, those guys probably adapt a little quicker to to new situations.
Just pure driver skill. Then it has nothing like you're saying Cindric at 7,600 has a vehicle pretty much just as good as, let's say,
It's
Logano.
Keselowski's car from from previous
wow.
seasons.
Okay. Oh,
it's
wow.
a top tier car. Yeah, it's a A+ car.
Oh, all right. I like that. Okay,
Yeah.
I like that a little bit because now we're really talking about, where DraftKings doesn't adjust the numbers for these guys who are in, different situations as quickly as maybe they should. So that's unfortunate. He's starting on the.
Yeah. I think this 100% comes down to, like, there's some survivability I think goes onto this race, but adaptability, which drivers adapt quick, which driver can get in any car and be competitive, and car control. I think car control is going to have a huge part of it because I think every single driver is going to have the back end come out on them at one point, and gathering it up is going to be the difference between competing for a win and leaving on the record.
Perfect. All right, let's get into some of the drivers on this thing. So strategically, what I'm gathering here so far, large track, it's going to really favor drivers who have good equipment over anything else. So in practice, were there any significant standouts in the practices, in the qualifying, where, like the other day, just yesterday, where you guys were really pointing out about how Cole Custer's car was really fast and, he was flying all over the place and everything. But he wasn't necessarily originally lined odds-wise going into that fight. I'm thinking MMA. Going into that race, he wasn't lined odds-wise like a stud, but then, of course, he led a lot, man. It was a great call. So anything like that where the practice or the qualifying really leads you to go, hey, this guy looks like he's got it this week?
I'd be careful of practice times just because, with Custer going down the Xfinity Series, he doesn't really have anything to lose. He could push it up against the wall. And I don't think a lot of guys did that in practice because that's where you're going to have to go to be fast, especially in the long runs, but it's risky. And
and practice
cars, people do not want to wreck. And next week, they basically have to take the same cars to Las Vegas. So a lot of people are going to want to be protecting their cars. It's like, I don't think they 100% of their practice by any means. Plus, it was constantly stopped while he spins.
Yeah, practice was really choppy. It was a 30-minute session to begin with, and then
the giant winds.
There was spins.
Like 30 mile an hour wind.
Yeah, I mean, is that wind still there, by the way? Because that could have been a massive factor in what
it's calmed down.
It's calmed down a little bit.
It's still windy.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not as windy as yesterday, but there's definitely going to be wind. I think it'll affect the race. But I think that is more an issue when you're hot lapping, when you're wide open. When you're in the pack and there's 40 cars on the track, the air is so disturbed anyway that the wind doesn't have as big of a impact as when there's a single car on the track. But I still think it's going to matter.
Interesting.
And I think a lot of this race comes down to the tire fall off here is huge. And there's a lot of lead changes. There's like a minimum of 15 lead changes per race.
That's huge.
And kind of saw in the Xfinity too, because like they'll be handing the lead back and forth after a certain point in this race. And honestly, pit strategy is going to be huge towards the end because if you've got tires, you might as well use them. So the fall off is massive.
Let's then extrapolate that. So lots of lead changes. The tires fall off quick. Got to pit a lot. The whole thing. So does that between that and the massive track itself? Does that reduce the importance of domination as compared to just track position at the end of the race, finishing position? Like Dominator not likely to go for 100 laps, and there are only 200 laps in this whole race. Is that what's going on?
We did say 100 lap leader last time here with Bowman.
Okay,
but it can happen. It is a lot easier to like drive your way through the field in this one if you're in the rear. That's something to note for the guys in the back.
It's also hard to kind of predict that kind of thing too because this is a new car. I'm like, if it's as edgy as it was in practice, like how are you going to pass if you can't even make the corner, running wide open or not wide open, but running alone,
like pit road and stuff.
Yeah. So I
see a lot of it coming down to.
There's a chance like this car is supposed to be way more raceable, but if it's so in the driver's hand that it's difficult to maneuver enough to even make a pass, it could get strung out and just follow the leader. And, anybody that tries to pass is putting themselves in danger of wrecking. But these are all questions that need to be answered today, and we won't know until we see it.
All right, let's start in the stud zone then. Let's talk about some of the stud drivers and what we think, how do we like them. We know that some of these guys, there's actually an interesting tier in the 9K range of these like real incredible, almost lock button plays that are probably going to be in the nuts if they don't crash. But let's start at the very, very top. Kyle Larson dominated the series last year. I want to give him his own little segment. He dominated the series last season. He was the man, and he's known for being pretty good at riding the wall. So, I mean, he's the favorite in this. He's the favorite on this card as well. So, is it a load up on Larson day? I mean, in terms of the studs, you've got Larson, Elliott, Hamlin, Busch, Blaney, Truex. Your standard group of goats, so to speak.
I think you can afford to.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the other part, right? In one of these races where the turd drivers, the cheapies, probably fall multiple laps behind because their equipment isn't there, you're not going to be able to afford too many of these guys. So if you take a Larson, for example, and this is a really good point, Taco, if you take a Larson, for example, at 11.6, you probably can't use two of, like a Busch and a Harvick and some of these 9K guys. So where do you fall on the Larson bandwagon here?
I think a lot of people go Larson and then place differential, because like a lot of place differential comes in the low 9Ks, upper 8Ks, and then like the low 7Ks. Yeah, Almirola and Bubba Wallace, and they kind of make it so you can afford anyone.
Yeah, I think this goes back to, like, there's so many unknowns, but what do we know to be true? What are the universal truths of NASCAR? And the universal truth is, if you put Kyle Larson in just about any equipment and tell him to race it, he's going to be competitive. He's one, probably the best, if not the second best, him and Reddick, at riding the wall. He's probably the best 2-mile track driver. He was dominating these racers in Chip Ganassi equipment, which we didn't realize how impressive that actually was until he got to Hendrick and was dominating every race. Even if this car is impossible to drive, I think Kyle Larson can drive it, and he has to. All is equal, so nobody's going to have a setup advantage. Nobody's going to have a experience advantage. New car, hard to drive at a track that he has historically, a track type he has historically done very well at. I think in a slate where it's really hard to make predictions, I think one of the safer predictions is that Kyle Larson is going to be competitive. The only thing that put me off a little is he was fairly irrelevant in practice, but I think Cliff Daniels just kind of saw the writing at the wall and saw how messy this was going to be and said, Kyle, go run, don't push it, just go log some laps and we'll get ready for Sunday. We don't need to end up on the wrecker here. So I think Kyle Larson is, you never want to say safe play, but in a slate where everything is very up in the air, I think this is one that makes the most sense.
I'm really liking the ownership projections on
it's
him.
Going up.
Oh,
Kyle Busch going to the rear, that's going up.
Yeah,
that's going way up.
I was like,
Hamlin's going up.
Those look really tasty. All right, so we won't be able maybe to get 23% own.
I think you still go over on Larson. I think.
I love it. It's going to be trickier than you think to squeeze that 11.6 guy. I made some really nice middling type lineup. So the other part that I would suggest and mention here is Kyle Larson needs to win. Like, you kind of at that price point, you need to dominate a little bit, probably need to win it, or at least dominate a little bit and then come in top 3 to get there. So, you don't want to go too crazy, even on a Kyle Larson, just because it's the first race and, he crashes in the wall, of course, because he's Larson, he's riding the wall, or something else happens. But even if he just finishes in 5th and doesn't lead, he's not going to be in the nuts because of the way I think this race can play out, where you can't play a lot of the super turdly cheap guys and expect to have any kind of decent scoring potentially. So Kyle Larson probably more part of a studs and scrubs approach maybe than some of these other cheaper guys might wind up. It remains to be seen a little bit how the salaries work out, but at least that's a possibility for me. But I like that he loves to ride the wall. Chase Elliott, always pretty high owned guy, starting 8th. He seems pretty, I'm not really sure what to do with Chase here. He doesn't stand out. Do you guys like Chase at all? Real briefly, because I want to hammer through some of these.
Nothing stood out. I mean, Chase has really good long run speed, it appears, and he probably would have been on the pole if he didn't. I mean, easy to say for anyone, but if he didn't wreck in qualifying, he probably would have been on the pole. I think he was tracking pole or pretty close to it. He's very fast. But in this spot, nothing really jumped out. It's kind of that, match the field. I couldn't I couldn't come up with a reason to be overweight on Chase, though I completely admit he has a fast car and is certainly a threat to win.
Yeah, it's like that
All the
reminder.
plays around him are better.
I'm
It's
gonna
a
throw
problem.
I'm gonna throw Hamlin in the mix too. Like these guys are just guys that you play because they might win the race, right? They have win odds.
Well,
here.
now Hamlin, you play him because he might dominate early.
He could
With
dominate.
Kyle Busch out of the way, that was his biggest.
Have we
that
confirmed
was
that
the thing
Kyle
holding
Busch is
back.
going to the rear?
Yeah.
Is he?
Well, somebody mentioned it in the chat. I'd like confirmation of it, but somebody mentioned it in the chat, so we're assuming that.
So 2 hours
I'm
ago,
gonna check on
Congress
that.
said 7 a.m. No, so as of 2 hours ago, there was no official word.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think the idea is that he probably will, but there's no confirmation of that quite
Yeah,
yet.
'cause I've been hearing that he will since yesterday, but there hasn't been anything out yet.
We'll wait on confirmation of that before we think it's real. For sure.
Yeah,
If he does go to the back, though, I want to suggest with Kyle Busch, do not, Taka, remember in the racing championships last year, we got burned by this. Don't get off of this guy because he's going to the back. He's Kyle Busch, and he will make
Kyle Busch the best at this track, hands down.
Yeah. There's no getting off of Kyle. If you like Kyle Busch before, don't worry about the going to the back. This dude
And
could
he can
be
just
top
walk
10.
back to the front in 10 laps. Like
that's
there's
exactly
room for that.
I've lived this. I've lived it. The dude is back in the top 10 on like lap 12. You're like, what the fuck? He's already there? I've lived it.
And
don't worry about the back.
We talk again about universal truths. The first race in a new car, first real race in a new car, it's Kyle Busch. It's always Kyle Busch. He adapts so quickly. He understands cars, like these race cars, at such a molecular level that he figures them out so quick. So, even if he goes to the back, the only thing that worries me is that there was murmurs of him having engine trouble, but I'm sure they can completely rebuild these cars overnight. I mean, look what they rebuilt. They literally rebuilt Kevin Harvick's car. He's not going to a backup after that wreck, so it's not really. Kyle Busch will be fine here.
Yeah, he's going to be fine. So let's continue with some of these studs. And the way I look at these stud guys is I'm just saying, and I would like your opinion on the teams here. But again, Blaney, he could end up in first place and lead. This is how NASCAR Cup Series races go. They're all good drivers. Blaney's elite. If he's got speed, he can make his way to the front. He could lead a race. He's got 21% ownership projection. You've got Truex at 26. Anything stand out about these guys in terms of their speed? I'll throw this trio in here: Blaney, Truex, and Byron. With Truex being the most interesting to me because, quote unquote, he's driving a Toyota and the Toyotas are fast. So tell me about those three, Brady.
Yeah, these are all kind of middle of the road plays. Blaney and Truex. I have them 2.5 stars. People email me after and they'll be like, the winner had 2.5 stars. It's not that I don't think they're irrelevant and can't win. It's just these are the type of plays that you have to take stands on. Blaney, not that impressive in practice. Plus, I don't really love him in this kind of new situation. I think Blaney gets really good when he gets a car underneath him that he understands, and he won't have that today. Truex, I think Truex, if you put a robot in a car, think of how good a robot could win a race. And if a robot could win that race, Martin Truex could win the race. He is so good at just input. His input is great. He's so fast at road courses because he can hit the brake, he can hit the gas, he can turn the wheel at the exact right time over and over again. This race, I think, where the cars are a little more unstable, there's going to be a lot more driver input. Not to say Martin Truex isn't a good driver. I just think this isn't the style of race that plays into his strengths.
Is he the Peyton Manning of race car drivers?
That's a really good comparison. It's a lot. He's not this super athletic guy that's going to run a 4.40. He's just so good at the game but I think a lot of Martin Truex's advantage over the last couple years have been setup advantages, and he loses all that this year. So I think it'll take some time before we really see Martin Truex come into his own.
But he's driving a Toyota, and the Toyotas are supposed to be really good.
Yeah, so that's the thing too. If we get out there and everything we think to be true is incorrect, and these cars are really easy to drive in the pack, and his, he could easily, this could be one of those Truex races where he leads 175 laps just because he's not going to make a single mistake all race, and nobody's going to be able to pass him.
I feel 75% sure that I could drive one of these cars and be pretty decent in this thing.
Maybe I think that's probably out the window with this new car. They seem really difficult to drive. Maybe last generation we'd let you hot lap at
give me a couple spins around.
Yeah. And then lastly, Byron is probably the most interesting here to me, just because he's going to be so low owned, and I think he's as relevant as the other two guys that are going to be higher owned. And Byron really sticks out because he lives in the simulator. So whereas everybody's going to be taking their first laps on track here, he's done 10,000 of these.
Now, how the hell
already.
does the simulator know what this car's going to do?
You'd be surprised. They're pretty.
It tends to help in new situations.
They're pretty impressive these days. But to your point,
Wait,
yes, it's an entirely different thing.
Wait, I need to go totally. Now, I'm not trying to waste time in this podcast, but if you're a fucking NASCAR Cup Series driver and you don't live in the simulator, what do you do all day? Well, what are you up to?
There are a lot of boomers in the Cup Series.
Like, what are they doing?
That's the disconnect in NASCAR right now. Is like all these young guys live in the simulator and have had to since the Truck Series. And then, Kevin Harvick grew up by racing on track 6 times a week. It's just a disconnect between the Cup Series right now.
This reminds me of Cam Newton.
Some iRacing Invitational. Some of those guys were lost in there. Some very comfortable in it.
It reminds me of Cam Newton spending all his time when he's not playing football shopping for outfits instead of studying game film. That's not how you get good.
But the simulator doesn't work. Like Kyle Busch says, like every time he feels good in the simulator, his car is trash. So it doesn't work for everyone, but it does work for Byron.
Okay. All right. So let's get into now. We're in the zone of chalkiness. I'm going to throw Logano out of that mix a bit. He's moving to the back. He was starting 7th. Was never the super sexiest play of them all to begin with, but now his ownership, I think, is going to go down significantly. So will not be chalk. Unowned at this point. Lower those numbers by 6, 7, 8 percentage points. Do you want a little bit of contrarianism? Because Brady, you made a reaction like you like Logano here.
I think people still pick Logano. He kills this track.
Really?
Yeah.
And doesn't this just feel like a Logano type of race? Like
it does, man.
He thrives in chaos. He was really.
Races.
I think he was among the fastest. Like he was first in 5 lap, third in 10 lap. I agree. Don't bring any Cam hate in here.
No, man. I will hate on Cam.
Never.
I will work a Cam hatred into every podcast I do this year. I'm going to find a way to get it in there.
But to the point of Joey Logano, before I lose my train of thought, he's very fast long run, and this is just a Joey Logano type of situation. This is a perfect track for him, and he's always so good when things are chaotic. Like he won the Clash, he won the dirt race last year. He's just really good at figuring these new situations out.
I do not think people are going to play this guy, so I think that's
so
edge.
cheap.
I think that's a lot of edge, guys. I don't think Logano will be owned. So I love this edge play, right? It's a little scary to click the button. He's starting in the back. Your lineup's all going to have lots of zeros. Amount winning currently 0.00, right? Going to get that, but I love it. That's edge, man. And I would not have thought to play Logano at all. I would have just, I would unfriend his ass almost in a race like this. So now you've got me on it, and I love that. All right, let's talk about the chalk, okay? Because we have 2 extreme chalk guys here. Kevin Harvick starting 32nd, 5-star play. What's not to love? 9,200 on DraftKings. Did they make a mistake? What the hell's going on here? So Kevin Harvick at 32. What are the chances this man is not in the nuts on this race? Like, why shouldn't I play him in every lineup?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, like, we still haven't seen any proof of SHR improving. Like, they were so bad last year. They came, and towards the end of the year, they were just pretty much irrelevant. And then we come to practice here, and they all, like, Harvick wrecks right away, and the other ones aren't fast. So it's just like, if SHR is really irrelevant again this year, then there's a chance he just kind of runs in the 20s. But that's just not Kevin Harvick, man. I don't see it.
Even if it's like last year, like he'll find a way to sneak his way up to the top 5, and that's really all you need from starting 32nd. I could see like if the runs go long and running the wall becomes really important for like a high end finish, maybe that doesn't go in Harvick's direction. But he's so cheap, 9,200. He really just needs to top 5. And all last season he was shit, but just finished 6th, 5th every race.
Yeah,
if he does that again, he's fine here.
There's also a chance that Harvick is just grumpy and out of it, and like this newfangled car. But he's a racer through and through, so I think it'll be
grumpy.
Fun.
He's a grumpy old man. All right, I don't want to. He's yelling at the other drivers to get off the lawn.
Yeah, I mean that's Harvick's a racer though. He'll be fine. And even
But
if the
It's like
car's
a wreck
bad,
to take him out, I think, or
he
a
stands out.
problem of some kind.
This guy's going to be massive chalk, like 50% levels. So, it's really important how you play it with a guy like Harvick. And are we going all in? And I'll mention the other guy that's in the same boat. I think Kurt Busch is a better play at slightly cheaper, starting 36th. Where is the scenario where Kurt Busch doesn't wind up in the nuts? Well, this guy, even in a bad race, is finishing, I don't know, 15th. That should be enough to get us there, no?
So last time we raced here, there was one single car wreck. It was just green forever. Maybe. This is probably not even going to be the case because he'll probably be fine after the pass through. Maybe a car goes a lap down or something really quickly, and he ends up getting the lucky down. He kind of gets stuck a lap down or 2 laps down for a minute, but that's not a really high possibility. Like he's probably going to finish top 10 this race.
Do we think 50 DraftKings points is enough?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
You think so for the nuts at 8,800?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if that's enough, I mean, there aren't too many times this race plays out where Kurt doesn't. I mean, again, crashes aside. Listen, we can't predict that, but where Kurt Busch doesn't finish 15th or better. So yeah, I mean, it's just really a question for me, and I guess the overall question for this group right here is how much exposure. And I'll go this to you, Taco. Like with Harvick and Busch, how much exposure is too much, just right? Like you're just going 50% with these guys. You want to go over the market a little bit, maybe go 75. How do you play it?
You can push up 60, 70 something percent. If you want 80%, should just take a giant stand, but kind of putting a lot of your eggs in a basket, and the basket's getting shaken up a lot this week.
Yeah, but
points would put you like probably right outside of optimal. Just looking at last year, I think the top scores were 108, 61, 60, 57, 56, 54, but I don't think you could afford that either. Year 4 is 115, 75, 57, 54, 51, 47. Yeah, maybe so. That's like borderline.
Yeah,
and he's just cheap enough that a few of those guys probably are going to be too expensive to have together.
Can't get them all.
There's just so many ways for him to be optimal with his pricing. He's just like a great third or fourth person to put in your lineup.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of
probably third person.
I'm gonna skip
2 dominators like Kurt Busch, and then it's really easy to finish your lineup after that. And starting 36, like his floor is so high.
When you start with Larson, though, you really can't squeeze too many of these guys in your lineup, which makes it, listen, we want a little bit of challenge to this. If it's too easy, it's too easy. So, Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman doesn't stand out to me too much. Brady, he's just, starting 14th in a weird spot. He's just another guy. I think he's going to need to, move into the top 3 or lead for a bit, which is possible, but probably.
Yeah, he won the most recent race here, so I think he'll be kind of popular. Just people like stat watching
the crap out of it. Yeah.
But it just doesn't feel like a Bowman type of thing. Like new car, hard to drive.
Yeah.
All things equal, I think he gets beat by Byron and Larson, and Chase Elliott to that point. So this has been a trendy play. I've seen some people around the industry like this play. So I certainly can't write it off. It just didn't stick out at all.
Yeah, me. GPP mix for me at best for Bowman. I think you got to throw any of these guys that have a chance of leading. It's like same as Byron for me. Just going to throw him in the mix at 10%, 50. I'm definitely going to be under these numbers here. If these are the numbers for Bowman, and he's starting in this sort of conspicuous 14, it's just not a play stiff spot really that I love. I think those numbers are a little too high. I'll probably go a little under the ownerships on Bowman here for Fanduel and DraftKings.
And honestly, with Bowman, like when he did that race early in 2020, he was like on a super hot streak. He was crushing absolutely everything early 2020.
I remember that.
Has since cooled off quite significantly. So I don't think that translate as much.
I chased that for a whole season. Yeah. And it never came back. It was like 2 or 3 races early in the season, and I'm like, Bowman's a real player, and then he just was nothing.
Came back randomly at like Dover.
That cost me his win cost me so much money over the course of that season. So, all right, a couple of names here that I'm really interested in. Also, middling salaries that I don't think are going to be popular because, again, there are other names that are just standing out a little bit more. So, first of all, first of all, Keselowski going to the back, starting 9th. The only thing I really like about him is he's an elite driver for 8,600, right? But a couple things I think will keep his ownership down. Now that he's moved to the back, I think that might reduce those numbers off the 29% level. Is Roush looking good? Brady, what do we think about the chances here for Keselowski?
Yeah, it's hard to say. We don't really know what Keselowski has. Obviously, towards the end, or like with the entirety of the last generations of cars, Roche was kind of a second thought. It seems like the addition of Keselowski has kind of infused some new life, along with the new car, obviously. Keselowski had pretty good speed in practice, though it didn't seem to translate to his teammate. So maybe it's not necessarily team-wide speed; it's more Brad Keselowski speed. But I don't know. I kind of. It's corny to say, I know, when we've got to make our picks before the race, but I just kind of want to take a beat and see what Keselowski has, because if Roush isn't competitive, I don't know if Keselowski is good enough. He's certainly good enough, but I just don't know if he can overcome that. It's kind of like a.
Dude's going to be very high owned for a sketchy play, starting 9th, who needs to basically finish top 3. Let's go back to our Nilly tool here real quick so we can take a look at just understanding. This guy's going to the back. He's starting 9th. In order to hit the 50, he's probably going to need to be about 3rd, maybe 4th place. Let's take a look, right? No, even 4th place doesn't get you there, Brady. How about 3rd? Nope.
That's about what he would run in Penske equipment.
2nd place doesn't get you there, guys. It does not. He must, in order for Keselowski.
I mean, he'll get fast laps though. So like this kind of race,
the fast lap. I'm not here to predict fast laps, Taco. I'm not here to.
Well, yeah, you have. I mean, there will be fast laps handed out, and they matter a lot on DraftKings, not on FanDuel, but
can't predict.
They do matter.
I'm not predicting that, right?
We can't predict everyone gets 0. It kind of throws everything off.
Well, I'm going with the 0. I mean, but look at this. Kurt Busch. Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Kurt Busch could get fast laps too. Kurt Busch needs to finish 15th in order to get you 50 fantasy points. Keselowski finishes 2nd. He only gets you 49. So this is a dangerous play for a 30% owned guy. And you know what I just convinced myself of?
Oh, no.
Full fading it.
Oh, sheesh.
Listen, I unfriend you, motherfucker. How you like that, Brady?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad. I mean, look, his track history here with Penske is incredible, and he was fast in practice. But I just think there's enough. You can come like this is what fantasy NASCAR is: coming up with reasons why you need to play people and why you shouldn't. And I can come with enough reasons as why Keselowski isn't going to make the optimal. That I don't hate your idea.
Yeah, listen, I understand if he leads the race, if he wins it. And when I say full fade, you can always, I always can take this one thing. You take the win odds, right? Taco, translate this to American for me. So was this plus 2,100?
Maybe plus 2,000.
Keselowski's win odds, yeah, plus 2,000.
Plus 2,000.
Which I think is shortened now. I think he's. Oh no, he's still plus 2,000. So yeah,
plus 2,000 odds.
I think DraftKings has updated single person on their odds, same as last night.
If we calculate the implied probability of plus 2,000, though, which you do have on the research station here, typed out in a perfect way where I don't even need to see this. All right, so here we go.
22% chance he gets top 5. That's what we're looking at.
It's a 3.
His ownership will probably come around to 22% as well.
He's not in the nuts unless he wins, and it's a 3% implied win probability here. So if you're talking about Keselowski, you need to play him 3% win probability. Okay, I'll play him in 3% of my lineups. I'll match the implied win probability, but he ain't getting there without that. Now, a guy I kind of like too, but almost convincing me off of him, similar to the Keselowski situation, is Tyler Reddick. I think Tyler Reddick, Brady, you said before that he rides the wall really well. That it seems to suit him, this style of track. Yeah. And I like that from a GPP perspective, but I think these numbers are going to look the same for Reddick, where he's going to need to. This is why these plays are so sketch. He needs to come in 2nd place to hit the 51 that Kurt Busch is going to get to if he just finishes 15th.
Here's why, and I know I'm with you. I don't necessarily put much stock into fast laps or lead laps, but in a long run situation where this race gets dragged to the wall, on the back end of a long run, Tyler Reddick will eat up all of those fast laps. He will be by far, him and Kyle Larson will be by far the fastest cars on the track because they will be centimeters from the wall. So I think Reddick has the addition over Keselowski of having a ton of fast lap potential. And listen, if this race does get dragged to the wall, it's Larson versus Reddick. That's just what the race becomes because
Yeah.
nobody can do it as well as them. So
Yeah, so I do think that makes Reddick relevant. Whereas, for me, I don't think Keselowski is as relevant. I see a little bit more relevance, and also Reddick's got better win odds at 17-1. So, give me both of those reasons to favor and having a little bit more Reddick exposure, even though he's going to be half as owned as Keselowski. So to me, Reddick better play as Keselowski at half the ownership. That is what DFS is about. I need to do a video on this, but that's what DFS is about. Get me a better play at lower ownership. That's how you make money in DFS, period. End of sentence across all sports. So it's just ownership leverage. It's a game of ownership leverage, guys.
yeah, and listen, Keselowski can win this race, but I always say this, and I know Taco doesn't 100% agree with it, but it's better to lose all your money than to break even. Because if you break even, you did something wrong. Your lineup construction was doomed from the start.
Well, in fairness, when my lineups are dead, I'm just wishing for break even. So,
Yeah, exactly. But in the bigger picture, if you can separate yourself from the cash, it's always better to go bust than it is to break even. Because if you break even, you never had a shot. You were too in line with the field.
That means I'm really good at DFS because I go bust all the time. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk. All right. So love the Reddick play. Now we get to another, what I think should be a chalkier play. Ross Crashtain, aka Chastain. Obvious chalk, should run top 20 pretty easily, but you prefer Bell in the spot. So let's actually talk Bell and Chastain in this little segment here. And Chastain, he's starting 33rd. He's in a Trackhouse vehicle. I don't know too much about Trackhouse. Who are they tied into?
This is so Trackhouse bought out Chip Ganassi Racing last year.
Okay.
So this is a Chip Ganassi car for the most part, with maybe a little influx of cash, that Pitbull money. But yeah, this is a B to B plus car. I think it's safe to say.
Better or worse than Christopher Bell's JGR car? JGR's the shit. No?
I mean, no, this is Joe Gibbs Racing. This is a A plus car. Christopher Bell is in an A plus car.
Yeah.
Chastain, you've got me saying Crashtain now. B plus car.
Guy.
So definitely a step down. But listen, Chastain's a great driver, and I think he'll probably thrive in this new car. It's just he didn't get any practice. He's just a step behind. He didn't get to practice. Starts at the back. New car, like all these different things that make me a little nervous about him.
Can't load up on that situation, but get some exposure. His price is a little spendy, I think, for his name here. 8,200 seems a lot to me for a B plus car. Christopher Bell, though, love Christopher Bell. Always love Christopher Bell. He's one of my guys that he's a go-to guy, right? He's won me tournaments in the past. It looks like his ownership's going to be pretty high. Good car, decent price, 8K, decent starting position, 19. What's not to like? What is not to like about Christopher Bell at this point? He looks like one of the plays that we should be loading up on.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And he was fast in practice, top 5 speed in just about every metric except single lap speed, which is fairly irrelevant. Great car control, like one of the better car control guys in the field. So if this car is as loose in the back end as some people seem to think it will be, then it should benefit Christopher Bell greatly. There's not a whole lot to dislike. I think he's a trendy play around the industry, but I think for good reason.
Here we go. Kyle
super
Busch.
cheap JGR car.
Here we go. Kyle Busch potentially not starting in the back. So
That's
word is coming out a lot here. I love Christopher Bell. I want to load up on that play. No Kyle Busch to the rear. That is good news if you want to load up on KB. I think so. Great. Now let's talk. Let's keep powering through these. I want to just quickly cover these 3 guys: Dylan, Busher, Cindric. Cindric on the pole. I think he's going to get some ownership because he's on the pole. I don't play pole sitters like this normally, but I've been burned by not doing that. Like when you get a kind of just okay driver, he's starting on the pole. He's got a lot of rear, a lot of backwards to go. A lot of times people load up on the pole sitter in these races, but Cindric is not getting that sort of a treatment. He's going to be low owned. I usually fade this type of guy, and I think I'll be fading all 3 of these guys for the most part. Is there any reason to be excited about any one of Dylan, Busher, or Cindric outside of just like anything can happen in a NASCAR race?
Yeah, the only one that maybe stands out here is Austin Dillon. RCR had really great speed on big tracks last year, and I think it's really easy to scroll past him So I think maybe being a little overweight on Austin Dillon isn't the worst thing in the world, even though he was really he was way off speed in practice.
Classic GPP only, like don't fuck with these guys anywhere in your expensive lineups kind of stuff. There's nothing that stands out.
Yeah, and I'll say on Cindric too, I don't think Cindric's gonna immediately follow to first place and fall back to 17th. I think he'll probably hang in the top, it's for sure the top 10, maybe even the top 5. I think Cindric is being a little looked over right now, but I think he's a good driver and a great car, so I think he'll probably hang in the top 10.
It's a GPP play, Taco, like with Cindric, right? No one wants to play the pole sitter. You're thinking he can only go backwards, but and you guys have already said this is a race where the lead is lost a lot, but if he hangs around top 2 or 3, at the end, he probably could be there for his price, and he definitely will be there if he's, if we have to have a reason for why to play him, it's because of just that. If he does hang around the top 3, and let's see what his top 3 odds are, just to get a mental, let's give it an implied top 5. So it's
honestly, they're probably going to be
like
boosted.
16, 17.
And I think he's getting a bit of that Daytona rub that we always see. They get priced up a little the next week.
Yeah, this is like his first real race too in the Cup Series.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though.
He's really just
they drive. I mean, I don't know.
I'd probably price him closer to Chastain, Christopher Bell numbers.
Yeah.
But listen, I think he's a good driver, and we know this is A+ equipment. So
honestly, 13% top 5, and he's going to be owned below 13%. There's something to this here, where if this guy can hang around in the top 3, 4, he's probably in the nuts at his salary level. Because part of that is he's definitely going to, or he's highly likely to lead 30, 40, 50 laps of this thing, or 20 laps at least, some early lead for him. So you know what? This is actually convincing me to use a little bit of Cindric in my MME. I don't think he's going to be owned. And it's one of those times where, who wins the tournament? When you win one, you look at the end, you're like, fuck, that was the one guy I unchecked. He seems so obvious. Like, I don't, pole sitter. So I'm gonna actually play a little bit of Cindric. I'm going to play a little bit of Cindric here, just because normally I wouldn't, and that would burn me, and I wouldn't win the nuts because he ends up leading for a period of time, but not too much.
Skipping back real quick, I just realized Christopher Bell 1 year ago was when we hit him at 80-1 at Daytona. So it's been 1 year. So that's a good omen for Christopher Bell.
That is, a year ago today. I like that.
Yeah, it was a year ago today that we hit Christopher Bell to win Daytona Road Course at 80-1.
By the way, 80-1, dude. 80-1.
My finest betting achievement.
One of the greatest calls ever. And it was a confident play. Yeah. Well, let's get some more of those going, Brady. All right. So 2 more chalk pieces. Maybe, right here, I think two very high owned guys, Eric Almirola and Bubba Wallace. So let's just both of these guys, there is so much place differential to mess with. I think one of the nice things about it is you don't have to load up on Harvick or Busch, because here's Bubba Wallace, here's Eric Almirola, even Chastain is hanging out all the way in the back. There's a lot of these guys. So how do you deal with all of these guys? Anything stand out about Wallace, Almirola? How do they compare? And I'll throw Haley into the mix, Justin Haley as well. All these guys seem like pretty good plays. They're starting in the back. They don't need to go too far ahead to be in the nuts. What's the story here, guys? What do we do with this?
These guys are going to be like 50, maybe even 60% in some contests. They're kind of just where you end up on to save salary. It's just so clear you go to these guys. So they're going to be chalky as could be.
Especially in your Larson, Kyle Busch type approach.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say about Eric Almirola specifically, I don't think there's anybody tripping over their own feet to go play. He is the classic chalk bomb guy. It happens so much over the last 2 years.
It feels safer than Bubba, though.
Yeah, I agree.
People don't like to play Bubba for whatever reason.
Well, he only turned 3 laps. He did not have a great practice session. He's going to be starting from, and his teammate Kurt Busch didn't turn. So he's way behind. I think that team as a whole is way, way behind. And Almirola is great at this track. If the SHR cars bring any speed at all, I think Almirola will be very competitive.
Dude, he's so cheap, man. He's so cheap. How do you not play these guys starting? He's a name brand driver starting 31st for 7,400.
Just look at the values compared to everyone else. What's the next best play? You have to go all the way up to Christopher Bell, you're comparing Bubba Wallace and Eric Almirola to Justin Haley as far as other place differential guys go, and there's just a large gap of equipment there.
You would think so. So, I mean, that's exactly right. Chase Briscoe starting 24th. Okay, too, but seems worse than Almirola or Wallace. Similar equipment, not as good of a starting position, not as much play stiff upside going on there. Harrison Burton, pretty fadeable, feels like to me at 22. Brady, you like about 10% there. That's fine. Newer driver, not necessarily a brand name. A great team there. Haley is the next player, the next driver that kind of stands out. You save a couple $100 off of Bubba Wallace.
He actually has better odds than Bubba Wallace, which is kind of surprising.
That's very odd. That's very odd on the odds. It's very unusual. Why is Haley, Brady? Why is Haley's win odds even slightly better than Bubba Wallace? What's going on here?
I think people saw how well he did in the Busch Clash. And, like, he was the story of that week. Like, yeah, Joey won, but how competitive Justin Haley was during that whole weekend and how competitive Kaulig Racing as a whole was kind of a standout for that weekend. So I think you're seeing some ripple effect from that. Yesterday I wasn't super high on this play, but I went back and watched practice and saw how good Daniel Hemrick looked in practice and qualifying. This team clearly has some juice. I don't necessarily think of Justin Haley as a 2-mile track expert by any means, but he's 6,700 and starting 35th with a car that I think is probably going to wash out to being like a B plus car. It's not unlikely to see him in the optimal.
Just remember the numbers here, guys. Like, that's why these guys have such a hard time not being in the optimal. Justin Haley starting 35th. I mean, at his price,
it's like they come in underowned compared to Bubba and Eric Almirola.
That's right.
More household names.
He's not even going to be as high owned. And at his price, we're not talking about a guy that needs to finish even. So if he hits, let's say, 15th, which is asking a little bit more from Haley, it's still 49 points, but at 6,700, which is a nuts level play. Even more nutly than, Kurt or Brad hitting those.
Yeah, that price you only need to hit like 45 to be in the nuts.
Yeah, I mean, like, you could kind of be okay with a 19 out of Haley here, and you're at 41, 42. That's a great little cash play. So he doesn't need to be amazing here. He just needs to kind of avoid carnage and pass all of the crappy drivers and, a few of the good drivers that are having some trouble and have that not be him. So
you could toss out his Cup Series data too, because it's a completely new car.
Yeah.
Way better equipment.
I'm skipping a couple of these guys here that are full fades for me, Hemrick and Jones. I'm not touching those type of drivers. Ricky Stenhouse stands out. What an interesting play for Ricky Stenhouse. Mm-hmm. Very cheap and Taco, very cheap. Ricky Stenhouse, decent speed. Everybody always thinks he crashes, but you know what? Throw it out.
He's top 10 pretty early. All the guys ahead of him going to the rear, and he's honestly, like Brady put in his notes, pretty damn sneaky, I think.
And fast.
I don't think anyone's going to play. He's fast. Yeah, I mean, no one's going to play him. They really won't.
Third and 5 lap, fourth and 10 lap speeds, and third and average lap time. Like,
and let's go back to like universal truths. He's got this reputation, like, he crashes every race. Ricky Stenhouse, the way he drives, he should crash 8 times a race. He is so aggressive, and he gets so much out of his car. He's got amazing car control. He's a really, really good driver in really not great, or historically not great equipment. He's very underrated, and his practice session really caught my eye. He was fast, and I think this is the type of race. He's another one of those guys that'll ride the wall. He's a dirt track guy, great car control. A lot of good reasons.
He's good in hard conditions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be hard conditions out there at the win.
But to everyone else's point, like, yeah, he wrecks 30% of the time. So like,
a GPP play.
Yeah.
What do you want from a GPP play?
You're not playing a guy. This guy. I mean, the cash lineup is pretty easy, and most of the names in your cash lineup have a 30 in front of them.
Everyone's playing Larson with 5 place diff in cash.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Larson 5 place diff. It's
your cash plays all have a 3 in front of their name, guys. Come on. So this is only for GPPs, but a really interesting one because I think the ownership is super low, 12-10%. And you know what? If Ricky gets to the top 6 or 5, top 10 even, let me look. Stenhouse, every time you want to make one of these plays, you kind of want to look at this and go, all right, where does he need to really get to in order to be somebody I needed to play? And he's got to be 5th or 6th place. It could happen. They're 6th,
I think you can
49.
get him at like 9th.
Let's
Because
see,
he
8th
allows
place.
you to.
He's only $6,200.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
cheapness.
he's like the last piece that allows you to get like a Larson or
So
something.
if you can get Stenhouse in there with like Larson and maybe throw like a Joey Logano in there, like that's a really deadly lineup.
The cheapness of him,
And
you're right.
Compared to all the other 6K guys, he gets fast laps.
He's by far the best of the 6K guys because we are now going to get to the zone of avoidance here. And Brady, you're very kind.
There are levels to this.
Yeah, I mean, you're very kind in the zone of avoidance, only throwing the worst of the worst into it. But
Yeah,
listen, this ain't it, man.
It's just the unknown. Like some of these guys did all right in practice. There's some optimism that these kind of tier 2 teams will have the gap kind of shortened early in the season. Cole Custer, obviously, I think he's going to get the Xfinity race rub a little and probably go a little over-owned incorrectly. I think maybe he can finish in the top 15, maybe top 10. So there's some viability to Cole Custer. Maybe Michael McDowell, probably not. That's about where he should run. Ty Dillon starts too high. Still priced 150 to 1 is stupid. I'll probably bet Ty Dillon again just because the bookies are annoying me with the Ty Dillon disrespect. But listen, he's probably going to run around 18th. Gilliland, new car. He's got some learning to do. He's a better driver than I think he's getting credit for, but this is going to be a tough go for him, I think. And then Corey LaJoy, we know what to expect from Corey LaJoy. It's, top 20 upside, but probably just low 20s.
It's all the guys going to the rear that's messing these guys up. Like McDowell should be starting 28th, not 23rd. It's just so many guys spun out in qualifying, went to the rear. It just pushes these guys up. Now these plays are all unsavory. So on a normal slate, this would be probably where you go to get a guy like McDowell starting 28th or Cole Custer starting 26th.
Cole exposure for 20 max is going to be really low, man. It's going to be like 5%. I would have 0 personally, Aaron. So I would have
crazy what you saw in Xfinity. That man was smurfing and probably cheating a little because that car was fast.
Yeah, I'm shocked
that car was fast.
Or past inspection, dude.
But you know what? That car.
The final restarts, he was gone. He was out of there.
But he showed it in practice and pulled it off in the race. So practice carried over to the race, which is great. I like it. It makes it more predictable. But no, I'm not playing Cole, Aaron Toller. Not at all. Because in 20 max, you got to take stance, bro. You gotta go in. You got to make some heavy stance in 20 max. And you can't just play everyone. You're going to have to unfriend a lot of these guys if you're making just 20 lineups. These are the guys I would, again, this whole zone of avoidance. This is the zone of, if
the
you're
only
20
one
max, no.
The only one of these guys that did anything in practice was McDowell, and I'm not going to be sold on McDowell here.
These are guys
bad at this track.
We'll go through a whole season, and we wait for McDowell to start 30th, 29th. We wait for Ty. Every time Ty
he has his tracks.
Every time Ty Dillon has a 3 in front of his name, or my boy Colo has a 3 in front of his name, 100%. I'm going to just be loading up on these guys. But a 25th, it's just not enough. So 25th.
Colo's best finish here, 29th.
Yeah, you're not doing that. And not this kind of long, track designed for fast cars. Like we can get a little more action out of these guys in the road races,
not the place to expire equipment.
No, it's an equipment race. So I mean, he's the only one. That's cool. Listen, if you want to make a stand on one guy, of course Cole could look amazing today, and then we'd be like, oh, oops. So do what you got to do. But for me, this isn't where I'd be. I'd rather like force in a little bit of Stenhouse, who I think is a little maybe sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these other sneaky plays like a Tyler Reddick. There's a couple of little kind of like sneaky little spots that you can squeeze in these GPP only plays. I don't know that I would go super crazy on the zone of avoidance here. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. So what is this? Wise Power 400, Auto Club Speedway. Final thoughts, Taco.
Yeah, it's good. There are just so many different ways this race could play out. So I'm not trying to over constrain the domination station with rules. Like so many guys going to the rear, I think just putting at least one dominator, or even just not using dominator settings, is probably the way to go this week. Because I mean, who knows? You could see. I don't know if any of the guys starting at 30th could like dominate this race, but like you could still see someone like Larson starting 13th dominate this race, and then none of the guys in the top 10 do. It's just this race could go completely green. This race could have 12 single car cautions, Who knows? So be prepared. Don't over constrain the Dominator station this week. Just have a plan for a few different types of outcomes.
I'm going to be working my max limits a lot more than usual, because I know if I just smash the Dom station and let it run lineups for me, it's going to be like
It's gonna be all play stiff.
Yeah, it's going to be all Almirola. It's going to be all Wallace. It's going to be all Kurt and Harvick and probably Chastain. So it's going to push. With the Dom station, you want to force the way I'm going to play it, and I'm going to ask you in a second, Brady. But the way I'm going to play it is I'm going to force the Dominators that I want using force min. So like if I decide, hey, I'm going to go 35% Kyle Larson, he rides the wall, he does everything I like in a race. I'm just going to smash a forced min on Kyle Larson or raise his projection up enough to make sure I'm getting him a lot of lineups. Same with Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch looks like now that he's not moving to the back that, Brady, is he the prohibitive favorite at this point to win this thing? I see that Larson and Busch had similar win odds going into qualifying. Is Kyle Busch now the favorite, or is it still Larson?
It's on the book wise, it's Larson and Kyle Busch. If you're using the Brady odds, it's Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch are co-favorites. I have them as a coin flip.
It's
Okay,
a Kyle show.
The Kyle show.
Kyle and Kyle.
Load up
Yeah,
on Kyle.
100%.
Any other Kyles we can load up on to kind of do a Kyle lineup? No.
Kyle Sieg he actually ended up doing pretty well, so it's just Kyle week.
Maybe it's Kyle week, but we need 5 or 6 Kyles in Cup Series just to be able to do those lineups. Any other final thoughts, Brady?
For me, I don't know if I'm overestimating how goofy this race is going to be, but I just see it playing out really unusually. So I'm with Taco. Like, don't constrain the Dominator. I don't think there is one race script I can play out in my head that I'm really confident in. I think it'll get goofy. I think the start of this race will be goofy. I think it'll settle down in the middle, and then it'll get goofy again at the end. I think just stick to, what you know to be true about these cars. Really lean into that, and I'm using this as a information gathering week more than anything. I don't have any real.
That's what I'm
opinion.
saying, man.
No, I'm trying to make money in DFS, guys.
Well, we can make money in a couple weeks. Let me figure this shit out first, because there's just it
takes so long for a track you can translate this into. That's what's so troll about the beginning of the schedule this year. Just so many different.
But we can make
types.
inferences based off what happens today. We can start to understand. Okay, this team is not where they need to be. This team is better than we anticipated, and this is how the car acts in these situations. These are just questions we don't have answers to, and for the entire history of NASCAR DFS, we've had all those questions answered. So this is kind of the first. So yeah, for me, it's just like, don't constrain anything. I think this race plays out a bunch of different ways.
And this race really will affect Las Vegas too, because this is the West Coast swing. They're very far away from Charlotte, and they're most likely going to be taking these cars right into Las Vegas for they head back. So
first couple of races, probably same vehicles. We'll be able to get a sense of the actual vehicle speed. I like it. Play for a little bit of unknowns, a little bit of uncertainties. Expect these turds to fall laps behind. So this is not the super scrubs and stars approach at all. We want to get a lot of these middling value plays. And I think the safe way to approach any race where there's a lot of mystery is to attack place differential and just allow for that. And place differential with 1 or 2 Dominator types. I think that's the way the lineups are probably going to be built. It showed based on some stuff that some folks were posting here about previous optimals that they kind of went similar ways with, a couple of high starters and then a bunch of play stiff plays doing well in this race. So that's how I'm going to play it. Guys, if you're watching this, post in the comments who you think is going to win the race. Let's try and we'll go back and check it out, see who was right. So post your race winner in the comments. And of course, guys, if you want to be notified when we're going live, you've got to be subscribed to the channel and have your notifications turned on. That's the only way. We're always going to be, boom, we're live. Like what? When are they going live? Boom, notification. If you want that, make sure in the YouTube channel that you have notifications. You're subscribed to this channel, the DFS Army channel, and you have notifications turned on. You'll also get other stuff, other DFS content you didn't even know about. Best ball. I think.
Taco, who do you think is going to win? Give me the winner.
Josh Bilicki.
Yeah, that's a good play.
I'm kidding. I kind of really like Okay, but how about besides Kyle Busch? So I'll ask you the same thing. Besides Kyle Busch, I think I'm gonna go for Joey Logano here from the back. Come back.
Yeah.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, which makes yeah. And listen,
2 Joey Logano picks.
My dad would be proud.
Yeah, I think Logano's the one that sticks out the most to me here. But like I said, I think this race just is gonna play out.
But I think it leads 0 laps.
You want to know who my long shot is to win this thing, guys?
May not even be optimal.
And to line Brady's pockets with all the cream, the way I did in the MMA yesterday.
Seabell?
Tyler Reddick.
Yeah. I like that. Listen, Tyler Reddick is going to break out this year. He's going to win races this year, and this is certainly one that he could win.
Why not? Roll the dice.
Let's do it.
All right. Good luck. Good luck today, everyone. We will see you guys next time. Like and subscribe to be noted. Turn on the notifications bell.
Is there a truck race next week?
I have no idea, but hopefully there's lots of races.
There is. We will be back on Friday. There is, yeah. So
we will be rolling the die.
There's not too many other
Las
sports.
Vegas, baby.
It's Vegas next week, 1.5 mile. Standard track.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's races next week.
Oh, boy. All right. Lots of racing next week.
Fun week.
No, don't make plans. Don't make plans for the weekend, boys. All right. Good luck, everyone. We will see you at the top of the leaderboard.